After weeks of busy schedules and endless city noise, Jack and Tu-Chien finally decided it was time to step away from it all. They longed for a return to their familiar farm, a place filled with memories and simple joys, where life once moved at a slower, gentler pace. More than just a trip home, this was a journey back to their roots, a chance to bring new life to the little vegetable garden that had been neglected for far too long. Years ago, this small patch of land thrived with life. Neat rows of cabbage and lettuce stretched toward the sun. Climbing cucumbers wrapped tightly around bamboo trellises. Baskets of fresh produce filled their hands, destined either for the local market or for warm, hearty family meals. The garden was once the heart of their home, a source not only of food, but of connection to nature, to each other, and to a way of living that felt pure and grounded. But now, as they walked through the familiar gate, their eyes met a different reality. Weeds had taken over, tall and dense, covering every corner of the vegetable beds. The soil was cracked, its deep lines like scars, left behind by too many days of harsh sunlight and too little care. The bamboo trellises, once sturdy and straight, were now weathered and weak, leaning precariously as if ready to collapse at any moment. What once was full of life now looked desolate, silent, almost forgotten. Tu-Chien paused. Her gaze swept across the overgrown space. A faint smile lingered on her lips, but her eyes reflected both regret and determination. "I admit," she whispered softly, "I've neglected it for too long. It hurts to see it like this, doesn't it?" Jack stood quietly beside her. Then he turned with a gentle smile. His words carried warmth and certainty. "Yes, but I believe that as long as we work together, the garden will be green again." Those simple words changed the mood. The sadness began to fade, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just looking at a neglected patch of land. They were looking at a promise, a new beginning. Hand in hand, Yanjie, carrying hose baskets and watering cans, they stepped into the garden. The golden afternoon sunlight poured down, illuminating their smiles and casting a peaceful glow across the field. The city's worries melted away, leaving behind nothing but the calm rhythm of nature. Jack looked around and spoke softly to his wife. "This place has been asleep too long. Today we'll wake it up." With that, the work began. The hoe in Jack's hand struck the earth with steady determination. Each swing broke apart the dry, stubborn soil, loosening it little by little, as if awakening it from a long slumber. Just a few steps away, Tu-Chien knelt down, pulling out thick clusters of weeds. At first, the roots clung tightly to the ground. Her hands quickly covered in mud, sweat rolling down her face. But she didn't stop. Slowly, patch by patch, the garden began to breathe again. Together, they cleared the space. Every clump of grass removed revealed the dark, fertile soil beneath. The sound of the hoe hitting the earth, the rustle of weeds being pulled, and their shared laughter echoed through the air. The transformation was not instant, but with every passing moment, the wild chaos gave way to order, the barren land to possibility. The sight was touching, Jack's bright smile shining with determination. And Tu-Chien's face flushed from the sun, strands of hair sticking to her forehead with sweat. Yet her eyes glimmered with perseverance and tenderness. They were exhausted, yes, but their hearts were full. Once the weeds were gone, they turned to the trellis. Jack hammered fresh bamboo stakes into the ground, each strike echoing like a heartbeat in the quiet afternoon. Tu-Chin worked beside him, skillfully tying ropes around the joints, her quick fingers weaving strength and stability into the frame. Jack looked at her with admiration, laughing as he secured another stake. "Just watching you tie those ropes, I already know this trellis will last." She looked up, smiling brightly, her eyes sparkling. "Then the vegetables will be free to climb as high as they want." Their laughter blended with the wind, filling the air with warmth and life. Next came the most delicate part, planting new seeds. Tu-Chin carefully opened each packet, sprinkling the tiny seeds across the soft, loosened soil. Jack followed behind, gently covering them with a fine layer of earth, protecting the fragile beginnings of new life. Finally, they carried watering cans, pouring streams of clear water that soaked deeply into the thirsty ground. The droplets sparkled like little jewels under the fading sun, carrying with them the promise of growth, renewal, and hope. Standing side by side, their hands dirty, their clothes damp with sweat, Jack and Tu-Chin smiled at one another. In front of them lay neat rows of newly planted vegetables, sturdy bamboo trellises, and a garden that was no longer lifeless, but full of faith and possibility. They had sown not just seeds of food, but seeds of joy, love, and resilience. As evening settled in, the garden transformed once more. The air grew cooler, carrying the fresh scent of wet soil and young plants. Rows of vegetables swayed gently in the breeze, their tender leaves shimmering in the soft light. Under the shade of a large tree at the edge of the garden, the couple spread a small mat and set down a basket filled with freshly picked greens, lettuce, sweet cabbage, water spinach, and fragrant basil. Tu-Chin lifted a sprig of tender leaves, admiring its freshness. She turned to Jack, a bright, playful smile lighting up her face. From now on, she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction, "This garden will be ours to care for every single day." Jack didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached out gently, clasped her hand, and squeezed it with quiet certainty. His eyes shone with unspoken agreement. In that moment, surrounded by rows of young vegetables and the fading glow of the sun, their hearts were filled with a profound joy. The kind of joy that comes not from ease or comfort, but from effort, from partnership, and from watching something grow. Because of love and care, the bamboo trellises stood tall once more, already welcoming the first young vines as they stretched upward. The soil, once cracked and dry, now held the promise of life. The garden itself seemed to smile, transformed from a place of neglect into a place of renewal. Reviving a garden is not just about tending to plants. It is about tending to the spirit. It is about finding peace in the rhythm of the earth, nurturing dreams and love, even in the midst of life's chaos. For Jack and Tu-Chin, this garden was more than soil and seeds. It was a reflection of their journey together, a living symbol of hope and devotion. As the last light of day softened into dusk, Jack sat quietly, beads of sweat still on his brow. Tu-Chin leaned gently against his shoulder, her smile calm and content. Birds flew overhead, returning to their nests, as if to remind them that every living thing seeks a place of belonging. And there they sat, hands clasped together over the basket of fresh vegetables, knowing that happiness doesn't always come from grand gestures or distant dreams. Sometimes, it is as simple as planting seeds together, waiting patiently and watching life return, one green sprout at a time.